we can be good students of truth, we can begin to understand what life is all about and what we are all about. But immediately you say that you're going to seek truth, you're going to understand it, you're going to absorb it into your life. The moment you do that, there's a problem. And I'll tell you what that problem is. The problem is the assumption that you understand what truth is, that you understand what you're seeking, that you know what you want. And it's the old story of human beings taking a word and by using the word over and over again, believing that they understand the meaning of it. So if I were to ask all of you what you mean by the word truth, I would have 1,000 different answers. So the first thing we have to probe and examine very carefully is to see how casually and easily we toss out words assuming that they have meaning to us. Now, again, take the word truth. What does that mean to you? It might mean exactly the opposite to someone else. So in our investigation, in our search, let us use words, but use them very wisely and use them very consciously. And simplify things by saying, now look, all right, I want to be a good student of truth. I want something higher than what I have now. In order to do that, I must not be trapped by giving myself labels of being a diligent student, because maybe I am just saying I am. So what we have to do is examine our own condition first of all. And once you examine that, then in relationship to truth, you can begin to make progress. For example, we can't know what truth is at the start. If we knew what truth was, then we wouldn't have to start, would we? We wouldn't have to change anything. We would know, we would be, we would understand. We'd be victorious in our life, in our human relations, and so on. So we have to start with a position that we do not understand ourselves, we do not understand anything higher than ourselves. What we can do, and listen to this superb start in being good students, we can see what truth is not. Now, already we've made good progress because we can understand clearly, with a little honesty, that truth is not the same thing as what we see in this world. Truth is obviously not in charge of human affairs. If it was, things would be different. You would be different. You wouldn't have the expressions that you now have on your faces if truth was in charge. What we can see is that the way we are now operating is operating without the higher facts. We are without it. Now already, isn't that nice? We've already shed, to what degree we can, shed ourselves of the delusion that we already have higher truth. Where does that leave us? Right exactly where we are in fact, and that is a marvelous state, because now we can begin to think properly toward truth even though we don't understand it. For example, we can see, if you're real honest now and watch things carefully, you can see that truth is not going to please you. Look how eager we are, searching around, trying to find human beings who will approve of us, who will be pleased with us, who will pat us on the shoulder and say that you're okay, I'm okay, and you're okay. We're looking for approval. Now, look at the jolt you're going to get. If you are really a good student, you're going to get the jolt of seeing that when you come to a place like this, you're not going to get pleasing answers. To the contrary, you're going to get answers that are going to jolt you, that are going to make you displeased, that are going to make you very often, and with many, many people, in fact, millions of people, going to make you want to run away. First of all, then, realize that truth is not going to operate as your friends do. And it's not going to be easy on you as you are easy on yourself. Therefore, you can have hope in that because it's going to treat you different from the way anyone else treats you or the way you treat yourself. And aren't you delighted? Or are you? So you get some shocks when you're told that you're divided, that you have no higher intelligence at all. So you get these shocks and you say, well, look, at least this is something different. At least I am not being put to sleep with my own lullabies. You know, it's a very fundamental fact, and you should think about this quite often. And you know that we've had this as a motto around here for a long time. If you can take it, you will make it. If you can just take all the what you call blows to your personality, to your good name, to your reputation, to your education. If you can take all the blows that truth wants to give you in order to get rid of the nonsense and the trash, that is the beginning of intelligence and the beginning of finding truth. And finding truth isn't quite what people think at the start. Finding truth means the absence of you so that there is no personal possessor of truth. Because when you see what truth actually is, you'll see that there has to be the absence of a personality, what you've called yourself with all your acquisitions. There has to be an absence of someone who is holding on to something, and instead there is something utterly indescribable there. And to use words as best we can to describe higher things, you can call it a spirit, a different kind of a spirit, different kinds of higher attitudes, and most of all, a different kind of life. So first of all, as good students, don't expect truth to behave toward you like everyone else does and to pamper you and tell you that you're all right because you are not all right and you know it. Come on. Come on, look at your life. Doesn't it make you want to be receptive to something that is tough, that won't let you get away with it anymore? You've got away with it all your life, and look what you are. Come on again. Look at the results of your thinking towards yourself. Look what's happened to you, and you don't like it at all, do you? Now look, you know in your heart what it's like living with you, and it is pretty terrifying, isn't it? Isn't it? Of course it is. I'm going to speak very frankly with you tonight. You do not know how to behave, to conduct yourself, to be in charge of the smallest situation. Never mind about running the nation. Never mind about building a great business corporation. Never mind about doing large things like that in society. For heaven's sake, stop where you are and see where you can't make a decision over the simplest of matters. Don't you see the necessity, the absolute necessity for something entering into your life and telling you, look, if you want to continue the way you are and making it easy on yourself and deceiving yourself, all right, that's your choice. But if you're tired, if you don't want to live with your present self anymore, then begin to listen to something higher than what your mind is telling you all day long. You can search your memory. You can search your memory for answers to life all your life, and you'll never find a single one. You can search your memory to find an answer to your business problem, to a problem in repairing the roof. You can search your mind for that. Have you ever noticed, however, that it can never do a single thing for you spiritually? When you understand the limitation of your intellect, of what you call your usual mind, when you see that, that is the beginning of the invitation. That's the beginning of the open door to you solving problems by dissolving the self that caused them. Listen to that. See, you're trying to solve problems. You'll never do it. You have never done it. You've never solved your problems. They come back with double the force the next day. Because the very person who is trying to solve them is the person who has created them, and you're looking back inside your memorized self and saying, please help me. It's like one lost man out in the desert asking another lost man to save him. Do you understand how close we're getting to actual human conduct and behavior? All right, we've reached a certain point where we say, I've searched my mind, I've searched my memory, and I do it every day. I've done it 1,000 times a day, and all I get is a feeling of increased danger. And every time you get this feeling of increased danger, you do the wrong thing with it. You run around in society, and you demand more money down at work, and you raise prices. You wander around this world as if it has the answer. When are you going to wake up? I'll tell you when. You'll start to wake up when you absolutely give up. There's a phrase called unconditional surrender. Think about that. Unconditional, no strings attached. No holding back. Just giving up because you know that's the only thing you have left to do that makes any sense at all. Who are you now consulting to solve your problems of loneliness, of jealousy, of problems of pressure, of stress? Who are you consulting? You know very well who you're consulting. You're consulting your own level, whether it's inside your own foggy mind or consulting other people who are just as in the same fog you are, and you both fall into the ditch. Well, we're talking about having certain intelligent attitudes toward the truth. And here's another one that you can begin to use as a good student. Don't expect the truth to change for you. You see, we come to a certain place where we're told something that we must do, and we use all the same tricks, the same pleadings, to see if maybe we can plead with truth, persuade it to change. You know, this happens very frequently in human life, doesn't it? You plead with your wife or husband and try to change their mind. You pleaded with mom and papa all those years. And we found out that with certain little tricks and certain little games, we could finally get what we want by getting the other person to change his mind. Yes, you can go into town with your boyfriend, girlfriend if you want, things like that. And we've got into the habit of thinking that everything should be treated this way. And it succeeds so often in the exterior world, you think it's a pretty good way to do things. You just try it in the face of something higher than your own mind and sees what happens. What happens, of course, is it, because we learn so slowly, we think, well, I'll try once more with truth. I'll see if I can bend it, make it change into what I want it to be. And the disasters and the problems that causes, you can see right into the world, out into the world, of people who thinking they can bend truth, use it to fit their own needs. And nothing, whatever is known about higher facts. I'll tell you something else. Truth is not even going to answer the human intellect. You know what's commonly called prayer? Have you ever prayed? Have You ever seen human beings pray? And did you ever, by the way, look very closely at someone who is praying? I'll tell you something. You can learn a lot about human nature if you do that sometime. And with yourself, let me tell you, a desperate prayer to try to get truth to change, God to change, I'll tell you what that is. Maybe this will shock you a little bit. You're merely praying to your own mind. You're keeping yourself on your own level. There is authentic prayer. I'll tell you what it is. And you have a long ways to go before you can do it. Now I'll tell you what an authentic prayer is. It comes from the heart, not the mind. It comes from the spirit, you understand. It comes from the depths inside of you that says, I don't know what's going to happen to me as a result of asking God for help. I don't know what's going to happen to what I call me as a result of asking God for help, but I'm going to do it anyway. Most human beings don't do that. They've got themselves right in the center of it. They think they can change truth's mind. They think they can get special privileges. And they even call themselves special people in the eyes of heaven. And I want you to know, and you listen to what I'm telling you, if you want a chance to be different, I want you to know that truth does not answer any prayer, any pleading, any request that comes from a human intellect, because it is not on that level. It has nothing in common with it. Remember our phrase, our sentence, N-I-C, Nick, N-I-C, nothing in common. Will you remember that? And see that what you want has nothing in common with spiritual principles, that what you demand, and I don't care how pious your phrases are, how often you use certain religious phrases. May I ask you all a question? Who do you think you're kidding? You are not even kidding yourself by being religious instead of spiritual. Now I'll tell you why you're not kidding yourself. Because you're paying the price in misery. You're paying the price in being weak. You're paying the price in being afraid of this world. Listen to me. You're afraid of the world. You're terrified of it. And you have made it that way. You have made this world exactly what it is, and you have the nerve to say that someone else is doing it and persecuting you. Why don't you grow up? Why don't you start being honest? Why don't you start on the path to real decency instead of putting trash out into the world, calling it goodness? You ought to be ashamed of yourself. You start with that, and that would be an authentic prayer, where you see what you've done equally against yourself and against everyone you contact. If you saw that and collapsed in horror at what you have been, if you were to do that, I will tell you that God will see that as a prayer, and you will feel something different happening inside of you that you have never experienced before, and which very, very few human beings ever experience. Now look, haven't you noticed that all your attempts to change yourself, to be different, to really be in control and command of yourself, haven't you noticed that it doesn't work? Well, it hasn't worked. That's why you're here now. It doesn't work. Haven't you noticed that all your vows to change, to be different, to not be so angry, haven't you noticed that you can't make it stick? Remember I told you, mentioned earlier about the man lost in the desert, and he asked another man lost in the desert how to get out of the desert? It doesn't make any sense at all, does it? Let me go into it a little deeper. Here's a man who goes down to a big shop somewhere, and he buys an antique clock, big clock. And he gets it at what he thinks is a reasonable price for a valuable antique. He thinks it's a real, valuable, rare clock. And he gets it home and puts it in his house, and he notices a few days later that it doesn't work, breaks down somewhere. So he takes it down to the clock repairman. He says, this clock is very expensive. I paid a lot of money for it. It's a rare antique, several hundred years old. I want you to repair it for me. So the clockmaker looks at it, and the clock owner sets it on the counter and says, fix it up and I'll be back in a few days. And he starts to rush out. And the clock repairman looks at it on the counter and he says to the man who's rushing out, he says, just a minute, wait, please wait for an explanation. But the man is gone. He has a dinner to go to or a football game, something he wants to do, so he rushes out. A few days later, he comes back, gets the clock, takes it home, breaks down again. Takes it to another clock repairman, puts it down on the counter and says, fix it up for me. I have to leave, and he goes out. Second repairman says the same thing. Wait, please, for an explanation. This happens several times. Every time the man rushes out without hearing the explanation. Do you get the point? If he would listen, if he waited for the explanation, he would have heard things that could have set him straight, which would release delusion in him, at least toward the clock. The man would have told him that fake, you've been taken. It's a forgery. It's not a real antique at all. You're trying to make something artificial work as the real thing. This clock can never work. Listen to the explanation. This clock can never function properly because it's a fake. May I ask, please, how your life is functioning? Now, do you suppose it just might be possible that you're a fake? In your present condition, do you suppose you might be living in delusion and not knowing it? Do you suppose you might have thousands of false ideas and motives and ambitions and not know what they're doing against you? I will tell you, if you don't know, I will tell you, your life isn't going to work the way it is now. You can't consult yourself and try to change anything. Why don't you all be more intelligent than that man who wanted to deceive himself about the clock? Why don't you be more intelligent and wait for the explanation? You know what that means? To wait for the explanation means to become, listen to this phrase, please, it'll be very helpful to you, means to become inwardly passive. Look, you just sit back in life instead of rushing around, doing all the foolish things you now do, getting all the excitements you now get. You stay home sometime and you sit back and you relax. And you do not go out to seek the answers out into the world because you've at least dimly understood that they're not out there. So you stay home and you sit down on your couch and you just watch how your mind whirls around, and you see that you can't even stop the whirling mind. All right, fine. You see that you can't do something. That is great. That's a start. Before, you thought you could think anything you want. You could direct your mind. You could build a great business. You could make great decisions. Sometimes you sit down on your couch all alone there and watch how out of control you are. And you stick with that for month after month and year after year. And I will tell you that the higher explanations, the higher facts will gradually, slowly, but very definitely and very beautifully begin to come toward you. You'll begin to see a change in how you think toward yourself, how you think toward life. And you will see that one of the most valuable, believe me, one of the most valuable facts that you ever picked up about yourself was to see, listen to this please, was to see how foolish you had been up to this point in your life. Oh, of course, it's hard on the vanity to see that. We all resist anything that exposes our folly. But wouldn't you face it all in order to get rid of the daily torment and the fakery and self-deception? Look, you are not hiding it from yourself. Oh, you can kid the whole world. Well, you can't. It's pretty hard to kid people you live close to, isn't it? They see how you break down, how you smile out there at the market and down at the office, and you come home and you're anything but a smiler. You're someone who can't keep up the act that long. All right. What is wrong with simply seeing that we've been fakes all our life? Let me tell you, the person who faces it, who understands that his fakery has been his pain, has a chance to get rid of both of them, that person has an opportunity to see the difference between merely being religious and being spiritual. That person has a chance to find the way out being the way out of everything that has taken you in and hurt you all these years.